Oh.
Yes, at least it's not poop, which is over here.
Oh yeah, but that's like rabbit poop.
Yeah.
So
probably.
it's kind of the best kind of poop because they can even eat it. And rabbits eat their own poop, and that means it's a very nutritious poop.
Well, okay.
It's called they're copperfags, I think, something like that. I'm not sure how to pronounce it in English, but anyway, enough about poop. Why have we gathered here today? To talk a little bit about my writing, and writing in general, perhaps. And and welcome to Other Directions. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah.
And so there's a concert going on behind us, which might be audible on the recording, which is it's Sweden during a pandemic, and they're having a concert. And I think that says everything you need to know about the Swedish response to the pandemic. But we have been keeping a distance to each other and people in general.
Between us?
I mean, usually we are like constantly hugging and stuff. No,
yeah,
okay. I know,
course.
we are not huggers actually.
No.
We are like the opposite of huggers, I guess.
So we just been carrying on as usual.
Yeah, because
basically.
we are usually separated physically, so it's kind of a social distance. We are social distancing on a regular. That's our thing. So it hasn't been much of a change for us.
No. How's your writing going?
Well, I think it's going well. I am almost done with the novel.
Which novel?
The novel about the Neanderthals.
I mean, the novel. That one which you already posted like a bit of before. Or this is actually you rewritten the whole thing, right?
I have extended the short story and I have added another part.
Extended, so it's...
Yeah, I prolonged it, made it longer.
Oh, but you used the original text?
Exactly, so it's... I just added like a double amount of words to it, much more interesting details, and I think it made it better. And now I am at 40,000 words total, so I have 10,000 words or 12,000 words left for the first draft. Like that's the entire...
Exactly, the first draft.
Yeah, it's going to be a short novel. Some people might even call it a novelette, which is like longer than a short story, but not long enough to be called a novel. But I think 50,000 words is actually the limit for a novel.
Is novel the same word as roman in Swedish?
Yeah.
Okay, I see.
So it's going to be a shorter novel, but that is what I like. I don't like long novels.
Okay, but you have to describe this in terms of pages rather than in terms of words, because nobody who doesn't write themselves understands how long.
So the writing community talks in words, and they understand.
That's
and
the cool
actually,
way.
it's a cool way. It's also the only way to really understand, because you can do a lot with the size on the letters.
But in terms of other popular books, how long is it?
So we can compare a little bit. I mean, I think I'm really bad at remembering the amount of words from the books that I read. I usually count the words. No, I'm kidding. I don't actually do that. But I do have a hunch. I mean, I have an idea about the length of novels. Like Animal Farm by Orwell is a novelette, and it's like 30,000 something words. It's very short, like thin, very, very thin. And
it's a bit longer than that one.
It's a bit longer than that, and that is like super thin. No one can see it on the camera because we are very far away, but it's a very thin. I mean, so maybe The Great Gatsby is a better example, which is maybe like this.
Okay, I get the idea. We don't have to.
Yeah, we don't need to.
I just wanted a sort of estimate.
Yeah, the estimate is like The Great Gatsby. I think maybe that is 60,000 words. I don't remember, but it's something around that. Which is a very interesting book, by the way. I like The Great Gatsby. It's not
like a book by Dostoevsky or something.
No, definitely not. Although I don't mind writing that much text. I mean, I think my record is writing 100,000 words in 3 months, but that was a diary. So the content was already laid out for me. You know, I didn't need to make anything up. I just needed to write everything down as it happened. It's much more difficult when you also have to make the stuff up, you know. But I usually prefer short
me
novels.
too. I have to say, me too, because I don't really like to.
Yeah, I think that is actually one of the few things I think we agree on when it comes to literature.
Yeah.
I mean fiction. When it comes to fiction, I think that's one of the few things we can agree on, that shorter is better.
Yeah. Maybe because of different reasons, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe we have different reasons to reach that conclusion. But my reason is that if a story can be told with a certain amount of words, you should use that amount of words, and you shouldn't write it any longer than that, because that will just add unnecessary stuff to it, in my opinion. And I know that classical novels like Dostoevsky's Crime and Punishment or Leo Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, and also Moby Dick. I mean, a lot of those thick classical novels were written by authors who got paid for the amount of words or pages that they wrote. So they had an economical incitement to just keep writing. And so I don't know if that, I'm not sure, but I think that affected how much they wrote, how long they made their novels. So if they would have been given like $1 million to write the best book they could without any restrictions on how long it should be, I think those classical novels would have been shorter. I mean, I'm not a I don't know. I'm not an expert on literature, so I can't say for sure. But I think shorter would actually have been better when it comes to those books.
Wouldn't it be interesting to see like remixes of those old books then? This might very well have been done, but like people going in and actually rewriting these books by basically taking away words and maybe filling out some of the gaps.
It's called an abridged version of a book, and it's just a little bit. I think it's a bit like low status to choose the abridged version because it's cooler to read the original full novel, and I can understand that you want to experience what the writer actually the entire story that the author wrote, but I wouldn't recommend like doing that, like removing stuff from a novel. I think that is, if it's there, you should let it be there. But if you write something new, I think why not make it economical? Like I don't like fillers, I guess.
No, me neither. So I agree. But from my point of view, it's more that I tend to not really like. I mean, when I read fiction, it's more. When I enjoy reading fiction, it's because I feel that the story somehow conveyed an idea or a thought, which was best conveyed this way. I mean, if you have a form of philosophical concept or something, you could just write it down, maybe like a philosophical essay, but in some instances it's actually more effective or better to show by example or actually show it as a fictional story or something. And that's when I think that when I actually enjoy reading fiction and stuff like that, mostly, or just interesting fun ideas. And often I don't really enjoy just reading for the sake of reading. I mean, if I don't really think that stuff is, for example, if there is a person who's about to die in a novel, I can't really feel empathy for that person. I know that it's just letters in a book. However, I don't feel that way when I watch, for example, movies. So I think it's something with me. I have a hard time actually going into the book and feel like this is for real, or not for real, but feeling engaged in that way. So I need some kind of intellectual content, or it needs to be stimulating, or just a really fun idea, like in many of your stories. I think are fun because they are like fun and clever ideas and stuff that happens.
Thank you. That's
so I don't really care for these descriptions about like the tree was blue and it's flowed in the wind in this and this way. I don't care. It's just I just want to get on with the story, basically.
Right. So you wouldn't like the Lord of the Rings?
I don't think so. No. I hate fictional politics. I tried to watch Game of Thrones before, and I got so extremely bored by just like hearing about these conflicts between different houses in this world and what they did to fight each other. It's like, this isn't real, I don't care. I just want to have like interesting character development and stuff like that.
Okay, that's very interesting, I think, because you are...
I know that I'm a minority and basically everybody loved that show. So.
Well, not last season, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, I saw the last season actually. It's...
I was disappointed at the end there when it comes to Game of Thrones. But you know, intellectual people like academics, they tend to like fictional politics because it kind of makes the stories more complicated. But on the other hand, if you want something that feels like it has some kind of, if it's kind of connected to reality, and that is why it's interesting, then fictional politics might just be not so interesting. I guess
this is the same thing that I don't like. For example, puzzles and mathematical puzzles and stuff like that, because I don't feel it has any bearing on anything real. So I don't really care about that.
Right.
But if you tell like a fictional story with politics in it, which is important for the story, which in hand conveys some type of idea or interesting concept. For example, like Isaac Asimov's, what's it called?
The Foundation trilogy?
The Foundation trilogy, which I thought was quite good. That's a lot of, maybe not politics,
that's
but
like the only thing
like
in those books are fictional politics.
Exactly,
so.
But that's interesting because it's about something larger and it says something more than just describing these.
Yeah, I know.
Things
I think I understand what you mean. What you're saying, if I just interpret you, is that, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but is that what Isaac Asimov did was that he was trying to say something about our society.
Probably, yes.
With the politics.
Yes, exactly.
And I think you could make that argument about fantasy as well. Like, I don't know about Game of Thrones, but the books maybe the book, I haven't read the books, and they might be even more like complicated than in the show. Shows tend to be dumbed down a little bit, I guess. So I think that the books might be much more interesting in that regard and have some kind of like a mirror, they might be mirroring our society in some way. And I know that like that G.R. Martin, I tend to forget exactly what his name is, and I read that he apparently said a lot of names during the Hugo Awards. So forgive me for mispronouncing his name now. I think he can take that anyway. So. He got a lot of criticism for his appearance there, apparently. But that's another story. But anyway, so that guy, I mean, he might have. I know that he took some inspirations from real-world politics, like the War of the Roses, and some medieval politics, like Isaac Asimov, who took inspiration from the Roman Empire, and that makes it more interesting, I think, as well. Of course, to have that real-world connection.
It might just be that I don't understand these connections.
There's a B here. Okay, yeah.
It might just be that I don't understand these connections. That's why I don't find it interesting. I'm totally fine with that as well, if that's the case. I don't know.
But I agree with you that I didn't really feel that in the show.
No.
So
my point is just that if there isn't a good connection, and if I can't feel
well,
that
you
connection,
mean that if it isn't saying anything about our life,
and that maybe that's because I'm too uninformed. I don't know. Or it's because of some other reason.
Right.
But that's just more a description of how I work and what I feel is interesting.
But I do agree with you here, actually. But that a book is better when it has some kind of intellectual stimulation, like when you're intellectually stimulated from it rather than only entertained.
Yep.
As far as I see it, a book should have two components. Like, it should be entertaining and it should be interesting. So if a book has both of those components, it's going to be a good book. You know, books can also be good if they're only entertaining and good, and you know, an essay that is simply philosophical can also be very interesting. But when you combine those things, that's when you have created a very interesting novel. I like a novel that stands out for me when you have both of those components. And as you said, you can communicate an idea better using fiction many times than in a philosophical essay, which might turn people off just because it's very boring to read, frankly. And there are many good examples, like Brave New World, 1984. You know, all of those dystopian novels. They say something about our society, and they can be very interesting in an entertaining way, and that is when you really hit the spot. And I try to copy that a little bit in my writing. I try to make it intellectually interesting and also entertaining.
Yeah.
So that is like basically.
And that's because I'm like, I feel like you're, I don't know, copy editor or sometimes, because I usually read all your stuff
you're my.
before you.
It's actually there's a word for that in the writing community. It's a beta reader, basically.
Okay, nice. So that's me often. So I often read your stuff and come with suggestions, and sometimes we actually talked about the ideas before, and I had actually been influential on what the grander idea should be. That's not so often.
I take a lot of inspiration from our discussions.
Yeah, and it's also it's especially interesting for me when we talk about something and we just paint with large brushes and get some general idea what should happen and large like waypoints, and then see the finished work afterwards. Then often you have, of course, changed certain things because it didn't work when you wrote it or something like that. But it's always I usually know how the story is going to end. For basically everything
I have spoiled the stories for you.
But that's fun as well, because I don't care that much about like the excitement in the story itself. I just want to see this idea come to life. It's okay for me. Often when I do these readings, the one thing I often find myself like maybe complaining about or telling you to try to shorten is when you have like these prolonged scenes of people being chased, or there's some kind of action scene. It's just like this person went that way and he shot that person, and then he went over there and shot another person, and it just continues like that. I often tend to get bored and feel like this isn't doing anything for me, and that might very well be because I don't feel that excitement at all. I don't feel like
and we can discuss that a little bit. I don't know if my action scenes are that interesting. Actually, I don't know why people that likes my stories, and it's not
because of your
action. I don't know, but I don't know because I am not super popular. I have a few people who likes my stories. Like, I'm not Stephen King or anything, so I have a small sample of people who have given me feedback, and no one has complained about the action really. So I don't know what people like in the story, because I guess one problem is that No Sleep, where I publish most of my stories right now, has this in character rule among the comments, so people are actually not allowed to give feedback. They have to pretend that the story is true. So I haven't gotten any feedback on my story.
But I probably see the feedback that is off topic or breaks this rule, because I usually see your Reddit post when you post, because you usually go to bed after you
I go to bed right after I publish.
I don't, so I can usually see those comments before they get removed, but it's often more like people just saying, this was a great story, I love your work, please write more, or something like that. It's not that much of like constructive.
I have had some feedback, but it has felt very opinionated, like a matter of personal taste. Like they didn't like. It's pretty funny because in this short story about the people who comes to this world where Homo sapiens never evolved, I have this very horrific scene, and it is meant to be horrific, and that is. I don't want to spoil too much, but it can be triggering, I guess, for sensitive readers, and I have gotten, and it's a fun part. I mean, I try to avoid being political in my stories. I want to be, on a metaphysical level, I love to be philosophical, and on a existential level, I love to be philosophical, but I really don't like going into current politics. That doesn't interest me that much in literature. I think we have too much of that already in the media, so when you read a book you want to get away from that. But still, I have had criticism from the left talking about a certain part of that story with the Neanderthals, and I've also had criticism from the right about the exact same story. And I think
the exact same part, basically, right?
Basically, yeah. So I can say that in the novel or the short story, the Neanderthals have a matriarchal society, because I thought that was an interesting deviation from our culture. So the women are actually in charge, and of course the anti-feminists don't like that. It's a feminist propaganda or something like that. But it's just a story about Neanderthals from my perspective. That's my intention. But they were not upset, but kind of thinking it's left-wing propaganda or something. And then I have this horrific scene where there is like an interaction between a young woman and the protagonist, and that has been sensitive from the left. Has said that is some kind of far-right propaganda, I guess, and it's like I don't know, but I feel that having upset both the far left and the far right, I mean, I feel kind of successful.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I feel like that's when you know that you have succeeded, if you have kind of repelled both sides. Yeah, exactly. So it's a bit funny, you know.
Yeah.
But it has been like that is not a big controversy or something. It's just a few people.
Yeah.
My ideas comes to me quite randomly, and I don't really know where they come from.
Do they come when you're in the bath?
Very often,
Yeah.
yes. I love taking baths just to think, and that's when many of my ideas arise in my consciousness. But
yeah,
I don't remember. I really rarely know where I get the idea.
I think I have one, because we've been talking about this before, that it seems like, or I know, that your fantasies, or rather when you imagine things in your head, it's called fantasy in Swedish.
So it's
that's why. It's not a
imagination in
fantasy.
English.
It's not like, So when you imagine things in your head, it seems like your imagination, it's much more vivid than mine. That it feels for you. This is from talking to you. That's why I can probably.
You know about.
I know about
this
it
already. Yeah.
No, but it seems like for you, it feels like almost real when you imagine stuff in your head. Some discrepancies, of course, but some way it feels quite real for you. You see things, you hear things, and stuff like that, right? And that.
Not hear.
Okay, you don't hear. Okay, you see. So I think that makes it also more interesting for you to just dwell on your imagination and make up stories in your head and let stuff
you mean
come to
in
you.
the bath, like
In the bath, for
anywhere,
example.
I guess.
So if I'm in the bath, I'm just thinking. I don't enjoy thinking about imagining that I'm going in a spaceship to another world and meeting strange creatures. That isn't enjoyable to me because I can't really I can't really live
I
can't.
and there's an English word for this.
Yeah.
Like it's immersion.
Yeah, exactly.
You can immerse yourself
I
with
can't immerse myself in my imagination in that way. So I rather like to think about more intellectual ideas, for example. And I think that
you're thinking
might
like
be,
in equations and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Like in that movie Limitless, where he's
that's
seeing
exactly.
like equations.
I see equations just going by. No, so
yeah.
I can more think about, wouldn't it be interesting if somebody built a program that could do this, but how would they implement this function or stuff like that? That's more like the things that I can think about, because I don't think I can immerse myself into the imagination in the same way, which makes it less enjoyable for me to actually imagine things. But since you seem to be enjoying like imagination much more, since you can immerse yourself in another way, I think that you also don't you get these ideas often from when you just imagine?
I think that's true. I was daydreaming a lot.
Exactly.
I am daydreaming a lot, and a lot of my daydreams is where I get my ideas from. I think let's see, like
because it feels like you always had it. We've known each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And it feels like you've always had these ideas coming up. And before you just talked about them, wouldn't it be interesting to see a movie about this or something like that? You haven't really talked about it in terms of that you're going to write it. It's just that.
Yeah, that's true. But I
just
always,
present an
I mean,
idea.
I have been making stories all my life. So the teachers, or whatever you call them, in kindergarten, they called me the little storyteller, and I didn't know that. I was so small, so I couldn't remember that. But then I found this kind of letter that they gave my parents, and that's where I saw that they called me the little storyteller. So
Nice.
it was kind of funny to see, like, have I done this long? You know, it was very surprising to me actually. Because
that's a nice name to use as a like artist name.
Yeah,
the little storyteller.
Yeah, because apparently I was telling stories to all the other kids in kindergarten, and then that continued. I wrote like children's picture books when I was in like the first years of school. What do you call it, grad school, or no? What is it? The first years of school, preschool, and then
when you were like 7
first
years
grade.
old.
Yeah, 7, 8, 9 years old. I did his picture books, and I just always enjoy telling stories to myself and to others. And this, what you're saying, is very interesting to me about immersion and imagination, because my imagination is basically photorealistic. I can imagine a picture, and it seems to me to be basically identical to the thing I saw. I cannot like look at the detail. Like I mean, I cannot look at it as a photograph. I mean, I can't look at my imagination like I can in a photograph and like point out certain things. But I can see whatever I see is very clear to me.
When you describe that, it sounds exactly how I would describe dreams for me.
Yeah, you see, my imagination is identical to
like
dreams.
A blurry form of photorealism. That's my dreams.
It's not like blurry. It's more like it's more a fixed perspective.
Yeah.
You know, I can't like move around the picture in the way that I can do in a photograph, and it still remains the same. It's if I look at the detail, it's a new picture of the detail in my head, and so it's new pictures of different parts. So it's not like I'm having a photograph in my head, but what I'm seeing is clear as a photograph.
That's strange.
And for me, that is the most natural thing. And I was very surprised when I learned that there is a difference here between people, and I think that difference exists.
And there
on a
are
spectrum.
people who aren't able to visualize things at all. As well.
And there's a word for that which I can't remember, like asynesthesia or something.
I don't
like
remember.
something that they can't imagine anything, and that was
they can imagine stuff. It's just
they can't visualize. They can't visualize things in their own minds.
If you want to be clear.
Yeah, they can imagine things, but they cannot visualize things. And this is an interesting question, because I think this is also connected to the fact that you don't enjoy fiction that much. Like maybe the lack of creating pictures of the story that you read.
Yeah.
If you can't create clear pictures of the story that you read, maybe that makes them less interesting.
Yeah, because as I said, I can enjoy movies, and that's like the same thing with. I know that they're actors and stuff like that. So it shouldn't be any more real for me. Really, it's just that forces me to actually see.
Yeah, so you are actually being given the visual stimuli.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I don't have to imagine it.
Right.
Yeah, I can imagine stuff, of course, visually, but it's not that immersive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that could explain like why I like telling stories, I guess. But
I think it makes. I think other people might have ideas as well, but it probably makes it more enjoyable for you to just continue thinking about the idea and see where it leads you in your head, rather than just get an interesting idea and be like, this would be interesting if somebody made a movie of.
Yeah.
But I can't really enjoy it myself, so I'm not going to like go any further now.
And the reason,
I think it's a real
sure. And the reason for that is because we react emotionally to visual stimuli.
Yeah.
Even if it's just a painting, or if it's a photograph, or if it's in a movie, or if it's in your own mind. So if I imagine something happening to my pet, say, I'm gonna feel something towards that imagined scenario. But if I can't really see it, I won't have that emotional reaction. And we are, of course, motivated and driven by emotions. So if exciting stuff happens in my imagination, I will feel excited. So yeah, I think you are right about that. So this was a little bit. So this was a little conversation about writing in general, and about my writing, I suppose, which might interest the people who is following this channel, or who is subscribing to this channel. And if you feel like it, you could always help us out by becoming a patron on Patreon. That's how you say it, right? You don't become a Patreon, you become a patron. Or patron. How do you say?
Patron.
A patron. Yeah.
Patron.
So you can do that by using the links in the description below, down here somewhere.
Don't point, because in 5 years YouTube will be in virtual reality or something, and then you will have to say in this other space.
So whenever you are watching this, just
go
click
to
on the Patreon.
Find the information by yourself. Use your brain and find it.
Use your intellectual capabilities.
Yes.
So you can actually support us by Patreon, and right now we have 2 Patreon, right?
Yes, we
2
do.
Patreon, and we are very happy about that. We are very grateful, and it's a guy named Mikael, and it is the Dark Somnium. who is a very, very big YouTuber that have narrated many of my stories. Go check out his channel as well. I will put it in the description. And he has now become a Patreon, and that's awesome. We are very grateful for that, and for Mikael's contributions as well. And if you wanna join them, please become a patron, and we can do a lot more stuff like this, or if this is boring to you, something else.
Exactly.
You know,
We'll do whatever you want.
we will do whatever we want, except taking off our clothes.
Well, okay.
But you can do it if you like, but that will happen on another platform.
Yes, okay.
Okay, cool. So thank you for staying with us during this little conversation out in nature. And now I'm feeling my pollen allergy coming on, actually.
Nice.
So I think it's a good time to stop. Okay, goodbye. Have a nice day and stay safe out there. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Bye.